Welcome. You are tuned into CrossTalk. What is CrossTalk? Well, we utilize this particular show to better inform the community members in the two towns that we serve, Whitman and Hanson. And the topics could be anything from upcoming events, folks who are running for office, maybe a get-to-know-you type piece. It, again, also could be issues that are happening in one of the communities, and we bring in an expert to talk about it. Today, we are very privileged to be speaking with someone who is looking for your vote come this fall. She is a candidate, a Republican candidate for state treasurer. We have Elizabeth Dionne. She is our guest. Elizabeth?
Kevin, so nice to be back, to be speaking with you again.
So for folks who don't know you, as you are crisscrossing the state and trying to get your word out to the 351 communities in the Commonwealth, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you feel this is the right time for you to be running for state treasurer.
Excellent questions. The first thing I think people should know about me is that my husband and I are the parents of 4 adult children who cannot afford to live and raise their children here in Massachusetts, and neither can their friends or classmates. And this is something that I've heard repeatedly. We are hemorrhaging our 25 to 45-year-old population. And we're doing this because we have an affordability crisis that Beacon Hill is not addressing. And we can get to this later in the program, but the treasurer's office is the most powerful office people know nothing about. And it actually does have a direct impact on cost of living, and we can get into that. So that's the most important thing to know about me, is that I am a mother. I'm also an attorney. And for the past 10 years, I have been an elected official in Belmont, Massachusetts. First on town meeting, then on the finance committee, then chair of the community preservation committee, and finally as a select board member and chair. That means that I have 10 years of deep local budgeting experience. It also means that I have interacted with each one of the departments that the treasurer's office oversees. I gained a reputation in Belmont as a relentless reformer, and you have to play a long game in government reform. And my last major reform happened in March, before I stepped down from the select board in April with our local election, because now I'm running for statewide office. But I looked and realized in Belmont we had done everything we could. We've done everything right. The town has a AAA bond rating, and it's not enough. I looked forward and saw a financial tsunami that is coming toward Belmont and every other city and town in Massachusetts, and realized we need a bigger boat. So for me to help my town and my community, I need to help all 351 towns and communities in Massachusetts. And to do that, really requires someone new in the treasurer's office. So I'm asking the voters to look at the 3-term incumbent's record. She's running for a 4th term that she hasn't earned. And I want them, on the basis of that record, to fire her and hire me to be what we call the taxpayer's treasurer.
Let's talk about last month. Actually, it's more than last month. In April, you received the endorsement threshold needed at the Mass GOP convention. What did that support mean from the convention delegates for you and your support for the campaign?
It was a critical step, but let me step back and say that to make the ballot in Massachusetts is extremely difficult. So we've had one-party rule in this state, not entirely, because 7 of our last 10 governors have been Republicans, and I'm going to count Ed King as an honorary 8th because he ran as a fiscal conservative against Michael Dukakis. But that said, the Democrats have controlled the legislature for 60 years. And part of the way, Massachusetts is a more purple state than people realize. And if you want, we can delve into that a little deeper as to why I say that. But it is very difficult to make the ballot, and that's deliberate. It protects the incumbents. It protects their privileges and their power. So to make the ballot in Massachusetts for statewide office, you do have to get 15% of your convention vote. So we knew that that was the first threshold. Also, there's a late primary. And again, that September primary is designed to benefit the incumbents. It keeps them in power, whether from their own party or from the opposition party. So we always knew that getting on the ballot was going to be a challenge. And so my job, I announced in December, was to go visit Republican town and city committees and convince them that I was the candidate who'd be the taxpayer's treasurer, who'd remember that every dollar comes from a taxpayer's pocket, needs to be treated with care and respect. And so I was very honored that they agreed with that message of transparent, efficient, responsible government, and that I received the unanimous endorsement of the party on April 25th. But the second part is, depending on the office, for statewide office, you have to submit 5 or 10,000 signatures. So it didn't matter that I had the unanimous party convention. I still had to get 5,000 certified signatures. And in contrast to my opponent, who actually used state employees to gather her signatures, we had a tremendous volunteer effort. So we ended up with over 8,100 signatures certified at the local level, which for the treasurer's office is phenomenal. And we got those signatures from 252 cities and towns. This is a statewide effort.
It's big.
I want to represent all of Massachusetts, not just the greater Boston area. A lot of Massachusetts, whether it's gateway cities or rural areas or suburban areas beyond the 128 or 495 beltways, the treasurer represents all of Massachusetts, not just the political insiders, not just the powerful.
You talked about it being, Massachusetts being a purple state. Are you saying it's a purple state because a majority of the folks who are voters are mainly unenrolled? Two-thirds
unenrolled. Just about any Republican can get between 40-45% of the vote. But we have a tiny minority in the State House, in the State House of Representatives, the State Senate.
Yep.
We are the grandparents of gerrymandering. People complain about gerrymandering. It started here in 1812. Every conceivable office is gerrymandered to keep the opposition out. The party in power is firmly committed to one-party rule, and that's what they have. So we're gerrymandered. I referenced that late primary. But also, as a party, the Democrats are highly disciplined. They rarely have internal primaries because of that September primary. They really sanction any one of their members who dares to step out of line. You've seen what they've done to Diana DeZoglio, who has been trying so hard. She's a Democrat, but she's really representing the people. They're in lockstep in opposition to her and transparency and the audit. But the last thing, and the treasurer's office really plays into this, the Democrats have been very, very good at using the apparatus of government and especially the payroll of government to support their party operations. I said earlier that the treasurer's office is uniquely powerful. There's an historic reason for this. Every time there was a Republican governor, the legislature would take something from the governor and give it to the treasurer to preserve these patronage hires. So we know that under Bob Crane, who was a treasurer for 27 years, the most corrupt treasurer we've ever had, and he even admitted that he'd become a millionaire as treasurer, and it wasn't on his state salary, 98% of his employees were Democrats. And they had to go gather signatures for him. They had to support his campaign. But Frank Sargent was a Republican governor. The lottery didn't go to Frank Sargent. It went to Bob Crane for all those new jobs that Democrats would be hired, and then they could volunteer on the weekends to support the party. Mitt Romney was governor, another Republican governor. The Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission, which was in the governor's office, got taken away from him and given to the treasurer. Charlie Baker, our most recent Republican governor, and boy, do people miss Charlie Baker after 3.5 years of Mara Healey blowing the budget and letting fraud and corruption run amok. But Charlie Baker's governor. And does the Cannabis Control Commission go to him, a known fabulous manager? No. It goes to Deb Goldberg, the current treasurer, where it was, in the Speaker of the House's words, another Democrat, a train wreck. But boy, it allowed for a lot of Democratic jobs, including a lot of her cronies who ran that organization into the ground. So there is a long history of machine party politics in Massachusetts that fund the Democratic Party. So that is why we're perceived as such a blue state, even though when the Republicans give the electorate really good alternatives, they will elect good Republicans. We've seen them do it again and again and again, whether it was Bill Weld, Paul Cellucci, Mitt Romney, Charlie Baker, and I'm not getting all of them, but those are just the most recent ones.
For viewers who may not be familiar with the treasurer's position, what are the primary responsibilities of the Massachusetts State Treasurer?
So any treasurer, the primary responsibility is twofold. It's to receive funds that the state has and to put them in local banks or park them in accounts so that cash is available as the state needs it to pay its bills. So that's the most basic job of a treasurer. But the treasurer's office in Massachusetts goes far beyond that. Second basic job is to issue debt on behalf of the state, to issue the bonds that are used to fund infrastructure, other long-term items. That is an area of particular concern for me because right now our state debt is over $120 billion. It means that on a per capita basis, we have the second highest debt load in the nation. So not only do we have the fourth highest property taxes in the nation, the eighth highest taxes overall, but those taxes don't reflect two really critical issues. One is the state debt that we all have to pay back, and the other is the hole in our pension fund, which we also have to pay back. So it's worse than people realize. And I mention the state pension because, among other things, the treasurer oversees the retirement board. A lot of issues with that lately. We can get into that. The treasurer also oversees something called PRIM/PRIT, which is the Pension Reserves Investment Management for the Pension Reserves Investment Trust. And that's the body that invests the pension fund to try to maximize returns. Because every dollar in investment returns that PRIM can return to the state, that's one less dollar of debt that you and I owe to the pension fund. Other things, the really, really important things that the treasurer oversees, I mentioned the lottery. The reason that matters, and I as a former local official, 10 years of local budgeting experience under my belt, we desperately needed local aid from the state. Massachusetts ranks 39 out of 50 for local aid. The state gives us all the responsibility, but not the money. The single largest source of local aid is the lottery, which the treasurer runs. The incumbent has parked a lot of her cronies who are not particularly qualified in the lottery. Revenues are down significantly. iLottery is about to go out, and we think there's a scandal about to break there. We think they violated procurement laws so that Deb Goldberg could award the contract to another crony of hers, former legislator. So we need to keep an eye on that. We're going to submit public records requests. Unfortunately, given what the legislature is up to, the state government is not known for open government or actually responding in a timely fashion to public records requests. But we've heard from multiple reliable sources that the bidding process for iLottery was deeply, deeply flawed.
Let's stay on the lottery. You're right. It generates billions of dollars in revenue for the cities and towns. If elected, do you see this as an opportunity to strengthen and modernize the current lottery system?
Absolutely. A couple issues with the lottery. First of all, we really need to look at how the revenues are allocated. I'll give you an example. We know that lotteries, disproportionately, the money comes from people who are probably lower income. So New Bedford gives the most money in the state to the lottery. It does not get the most money back. So we really need to revisit the allocation and make sure that cities and towns are receiving their fair share. We also have a concern about the lottery. Let me back up and say the lottery used to be run by the mob. The mob would put hits on people. I would much rather have the state running the lottery and not killing people than having the mob run the lottery. Just my preference. So it's always a little tricky when you want to increase lottery revenues because you need to understand who that money's coming from. But that said, I think the issue right now is that lottery, because it's been stale and not creative, is losing money to sports gambling, to the prediction markets. So I don't want to go out and encourage people who can't afford it to buy more lottery tickets. But I really want to encourage people who are already in that market to come spend their money for the state where they have a higher chance of a win.
A return.
And also that money, whatever the profit, is going back into their own communities. So let them know, gee, if you have a choice between sports betting and the prediction markets or the lottery, please come to the lottery. Here's an example of what the incumbent did. There was a former employee of the lottery who'd actually won an Emmy for his work in advertising. And she got mad at him because he refused to destroy evidence in the Cannabis Control Commission case, which we can get to. Oh. She fires him. So a good leader protects employees who are delivering. She protects employees who are her cronies or part of her inner circle. And we've seen this again and again and again. We know that it was happening at the Cannabis Control Commission, which was supposed to be a revenue generator. We know that it's happening at the lottery right now. In fact, the head of the lottery has been threatening unions that they better support the incumbent. I don't think that's a good way to earn union support.
No.
Yeah, so they're just, and in some ways they're just not that bright, but they certainly protect their territory. I am utterly committed to the good of the public. I am committed to transparency, to open government, to putting the best people. I don't care what your party is. I want the best people in positions of authority and decision-making areas in each of the 13 areas of the Treasurer's office. Because my primary job, I don't answer to the party, I answer to the people. I'm running as a Republican because I'm a dedicated fiscal conservative, and I believe in open, transparent government. But at the end of the day, it's people first, not party first. So I don't care if you're a Democrat, unenrolled, or Republican. I just want the best person in each position of the Treasurer's office.
You referenced wanting to touch upon the pension system
Yes.
in an earlier remark. Give your views on where the state pension fund investment is at this time, and what would be some of the investment strategies or oversights that you would want to change or tweak?
So a really good and important question. Those investment returns really matter. And Prim and Pritt are actually well run by a gentleman named Michael Trotsky, who incidentally actually lives in Belmont. And I spent 7 years trying to reform our local pension investments to put them into the state fund because the state fund had better returns and lower expenses. One of the areas that we cleaned up corruption and cronyism in Belmont was actually our pension fund. And I upset some powers that be in doing that, but I didn't care because I answered to the voters of Belmont. They're my boss, not the cronies in particular areas. What is really important about the state pension fund is that you insulate it from political pressure. So one of the things that the current treasurer tried to do was force ESG, environmental, social, governance goals, on Prim and Pritt. Everybody's abandoned ESG because it leads to lower returns. Every dollar not earned in investment is a dollar that has to come out of a taxpayer's pocket. So it is really, really important that I, as treasurer, provide political cover for Prim and Pritt to do their jobs and to serve the people of the Commonwealth and the taxpayers of the Commonwealth. Another thing that has me deeply concerned is right now the governor wants to raid Prim and Pritt. She has an abysmal record on economic development. We are 50th out of 50 for job growth. We are 50th out of 50 for economic development, and that has happened under the current administration. That was not true when Charlie Baker was governor. The state has always done better with Republican governors in terms of economics and affordability. So the current governor has bloated. She's massively expanded payroll, the number of employees that the state has. She has not cracked down on corruption. And to try to cover her failure, she's actually trying to raid Prim and Pritt to set up a fund to invest in Massachusetts businesses. Well, Massachusetts is losing businesses not because there isn't enough money coming from the government to fund operations. It's because our regulations are erratic, they don't make sense, they burden businesses, and we are driving our workers out of the state through the affordability crisis. So the solution to our affordability crisis, to overregulation of business, is not to go raid Prim and Pritt, thus putting a greater burden on the taxpayer to make up the difference. It is to have a good business environment. It is to prioritize affordability, transparency, and accountability. She's got this all backwards, and we need to reverse course quickly. One other thing that I do want to say is pensions themselves are sacred. I am not talking about reducing pension benefits. We have made promises to frontline workers who worked for decades to serve the public. And my experience with public servants in Belmont, they are mission driven. Every day they showed up trying to help the public. But right now, the incumbent is reneging on promises, especially to Department of Correction retirees. So Department of Correction retirees who are seeking Group 2 status because of hazards in their work are being denied that, and instead of getting 80% of their promised salary, they're getting 50% of their promised salary. She doesn't even have the respect to show up to these meetings in person. She lives a third of the year in Palm Beach. She's not even a full-time resident of the state, and she literally phones into meetings. It's not even Zoom, it's telephone. So these people are not getting the courtesy of a face-to-face meeting to make their case, and they are being denied for the first time in our history the pensions that we promised them. And I am adamant that promised pensions will be delivered. We do have a pension problem, but it's that we underfunded the promised pensions, first of all. And second, it's that we have too many pensions that are in the $200,000, $300,000 range going especially to UMass retirees. We should not be balancing our books on the backs of people who are earning under six figures, whose pensions are under six figures. Those are our frontline workers who deliver services every day to the Massachusetts public, and I'm adamant about protecting them.
Let's also talk about a couple of other programs that the office oversees, the Massachusetts School Building Authority.
Oh, that's yes.
And the Unclaimed Property Division.
So let's start with the Mass School Building Authority, known as the MSBA. I'm very familiar with this office. They helped Belmont build both a middle school and a high school. We did 2 schools for under $300 million, and that was fairly recently. The MSBA is happily part of what I call the industrial education complex, where no one is watching escalating expenses. And the industries that are involved are happily scratching each other's backs because they drive up the prices and their profits go up. So right now, MSBA is helping Lexington build a $660 million high school. Just a high school, not a middle school. Yeah. Double the cost of what we built 2 schools for recently in Belmont. Boston is planning a $1 billion high school. Well, this is problematic for a number of reasons. The first is that there's one pot of money. The more money that we spend on Lexington and Boston, the less money that's available for anybody else. So that's the first problem. It's just wasteful. And we have plenty of schools in this state that have leaking roofs, don't have sufficient HVAC, don't have facilities that children need to learn. Peabody has a particularly bad school I'm aware of. The second issue is a year ago, Mass Inc. published a very in-depth study saying that disproportionately MSBA has benefited wealthy suburban districts who can actually afford to build their schools. It has not benefited gateway cities. It has not benefited rural districts. So first of all, we need to have an eagle eye on every dollar that is being spent so that none of it's being wasted. But the second thing that we really need to look at is how are we allocating this money? Like the lottery, it's taking from those who don't have and giving to those who do have. Well, the MSBA is doing the exact same thing. It's taking from those who don't have to subsidize those who do have. That's not progressive in my mind. Again, when I talk about efficient, transparent, open government, it's also supposed to be fair. Everyone should be getting their fair share. We should not be disproportionately benefiting the politically powerful who vote for Beacon Hill. Because we know that the greater Boston area, where these wealthy suburbs are located, disproportionately votes in the people who are on Beacon Hill right now.
It's interesting you mentioned about the building of the schools and the amount. There is a neighboring gateway city, Brockton, that is actually on the cusp of looking to build a close to $1 billion high school as well. So add them to the list as well.
Oh my goodness.
Let's talk. Another role of the treasurer is promoting financial literacy and helping residents prepare for retirement. Talk to me about what it would look like under your leadership.
I'll get to that, but you had also asked about the Unclaimed Property Division, right. And we never answered that question.
So we'll put that on the side, the financial literacy, and if you will, the Unclaimed Property Division. Talk to me about that a little bit, and how that needs to operate effectively.
More effectively than it currently does. This is one where I need to do a deeper dive, but we know that in November, a gentleman from Georgia, it came to light, had stolen over $1 million. And part of that came from the estate of a woman whose 2 sons now don't have the $650,000 that she had left her 2 sons. We need to find out how and why that happened. And I've thought long and hard. And it's not the first time that something's been stolen from unclaimed property. But I think there's a very specific reason that it happened under the incumbent's leadership, if we can call it that. She has a reputation for being very remote. Cannabis Control Commission, workers and unions were asking her to address worker safety, and a worker died in January 22 because of hazardous conditions. She wouldn't talk to them. She wouldn't respond. She is notorious for not listening to anybody except her very close inner circle. You can't have your eye as the treasurer. There's too much going on. And the only way that you can know what is going on is to build a relationship of trust with your frontline workers. I did this in Belmont. I was talking to people who are on the front lines, and information is the most precious commodity. People's time and information. If they're willing to tell you what's going on the front lines, you better listen to them. And your response should be, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Your response should be, it shouldn't be that. It should be, thank you. We're going to look into this. I am pretty sure that there are workers in the unclaimed property division who would let us know preemptively, what are the problems? What are the loopholes? Because we can put processes in place and have the best of intentions, but it's only the people who are implementing them who really know if they're working or not. So my pledge to workers in unclaimed property or any other division in the treasurer's office is, if you're a whistleblower, you're going to have the highest respect. I'm going to treat what you've told me with confidentiality. I'm going to protect your job. There will be no political vendettas. The incumbent is known for her multiple political vendettas. She is known for protecting her cronies and going after whistleblowers. So unclaimed property, we need to do a deeper dive to find out why and how that most recent scandal happened. But really, I think the key is, yes, procedures. And actually, I'm going to step back. One of the things that I've pledged, my first act as treasurer will be to audit all 12, 13, depending on how you count them, departments in the treasurer's office. The reason for that is we don't know what we're dealing with until we have a thorough audit. And I'm not talking the kind of audits that the legislature yesterday, we can get into what the legislature did yesterday, where it's claiming that you're complying and you're not. You're withholding key information. I am talking top to bottom transparency, a thorough scrub with outside auditors. And I think that the current auditor is great. She has all my admiration. She also, if we have any kind of Republican presence on Beacon Hill next year, she's going to be very busy as we look to her to help. So we're going to need to bring in some outside help. But we need to audit top to bottom every department. That includes unclaimed property. And it also means that as part of that audit, any whistleblower will be thanked and protected.
We got 2 minutes left in our conversation. And I don't know if you want to try to wrap financial literacy in that, or maybe tell folks, what folks who are watching right now, what your message is to voters as you seek their support come this fall in November.
I think I will take an opportunity to speak directly to voters. So I'm Elizabeth Dionne. I am running to be your taxpayers' treasurer for one simple reason, which is that you need and deserve a treasurer who understands that every dollar comes from a taxpayer's pocket and needs to be treated with respect. A major reason that I'm running is that the treasurer's office is the leading source of local aid. And right now, local aid has to pay for all the frontline services that we rely on from government, from education to police to fire to streets, sidewalks, water infrastructure. Every dollar that Beacon Hill keeps from your pocket and does not return to your city or town is a dollar that has to come out of your family's budget. It's gone on too long. It needs to stop. So I am absolutely committed to increasing local aid to relieve pressure on cities, towns, and your pocketbook. Need your help? Please go to my website, votedionne.com, vote DIONNE.com, and join our movement for a taxpayer's treasurer. Thank you. And Kevin, thank you. I love local media. It's one of the things that in Belmont, I was a huge advocate for local media, and what you do is so important.
Well, we appreciate you coming down, and maybe we try to have you back in after the September primary,
Absolutely.
Just to kind of, follow up.
Tell you what else is going on, what else we've uncovered of the many. We have not touched on the scandals that scandal after scandal that has beset the incumbent.
Scratching the surface. Just
scratching the surface. There's so much that we still have to talk about how she has misspent or misused taxpayer money.
All right, we'll make sure I'll schedule with Alex, and we'll go with that.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
You got it. We want to thank you for tuning into a show like CrossTalk. The idea is to have you better informed as a resident, utilizing our studios here at 115 South Avenue in Whitman. And again, also the candidates that will be on the ballot come this September and November. Until our next conversation, have yourself a great day.